Hello, and thank you all for joining our 6th CAHME Mentorship Circle educational webinar session in our CMC series. My name is Melissa Cross, and I am the Education Coordinator for CAHME. Just a reminder, the purpose of this webinar today goes with our CAHME Mentorship Circle. The CMC goal is to further CAHME's mission of advancing the quality healthcare of management education. The CMC designation recognizes CAHME programs that demonstrate a commitment to excellence, not only to their own programs, but across the broader field of healthcare management education. The CMC designation is an honor and a responsibility. Several CMC programs have volunteered to share key processes and approaches through this webinar series, such as Seton Hall University today. Just a quick facts about CAHME and case competitions. The CAHME website tracks major case competitions. CAHME-Accredited programs finished first in 100% of the top 20 case competitions in the academic year 2019-2020, including at case competitions at schools and organizations that are not CAHME accredited. Tellingly, teams from CAHME accredited programs came in first, second, or third 90% of the time. This is not surprising. CAHME accredited programs excel because programs that are CAHME accredited seek to ensure the quality of education available to students and are in continuous peer review processes to advance the quality of healthcare management education. To learn more about CAHME case competitions or case competitions, you can visit cahme.org/case competitions. And with that being said, it is my pleasure to introduce today Dr. Ann Hewitt, Acting Chair and Professor, Department of Interprofessional Health Science and Health Administration, School of Health and Medical Sciences with Seton Hall University, and Dr. Jory, Acting MHA Program Director and Assistant Professor, Department of Interprofessional Health Sciences and Health Administration, School of Health and Medical Sciences with Seton Hall University. Dr. Hewitt and Dr. Jory worked diligently over the past few months to transform the annual Seton Hall case competition into a virtual event. Their time and dedication to make it a success really showed through their planning, organization, and hard work. Today, you will hear from multiple SHU Virtual Case Study Challenge participants. You will hear perspectives from sponsors, judges, healthcare executives, faculty, and students who all play a vital role in the success of the event. I will now pass it over to Dr. Hewitt, who will begin taking you along their Virtual Case Study Challenge planning process.
Thank you so much, Melissa, and welcome everyone to our guide for how to host a case study challenge, a virtual case study challenge. Today, we're going to walk you through step-by-step the development process for creating a virtual case study. We'll discuss the different types of changes that occurred between the face-to-face and virtual. We'll share with you and present some of our outcome reflections. And finally, we'll allow some extra time so that we can have individual questions from each one of you. The goal of this session is to take you step-by-step through this complete process. And as we do this, we're going to start with the 4 steps that we did, and they were primary steps in our pre-planning phase. First of all, this was a regional event. So our first step was to coordinate with local schools and universities to make sure there was no scheduling conflict. As we invite CAHME schools and schools in the CAHME pipeline, we also connected with CAHME to make sure that we had the eligible list of programs and the latest one. After we did that with these 2 pieces of information, we were able to create a save the date notice, which we tried to put up approximately 1 year before the actual event. That was followed about a few months later with our formal announcement. And on this slide, you can also see a copy of our formal announcement. When conducting such a complex and detailed event, such as a virtual case study, there needs to be a division of roles and responsibilities. Primary for us was the establishment of an iron curtain between the faculty planners, which were Dr. Jory and myself, and our faculty coaches. And we did that to ensure the integrity of the case study challenge. In my role as acting chair, I completed outreach efforts to both our partner organization, the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey, and also our premier sponsor, Healthcare, Hackensack and Meridian Healthcare. And so at this time, we'd like to share our sponsor and our partners' perspective with you in these videos.
Hi, I'm Matt DiBartolomeo, Manager of Academic Relations at Hackensack Meridian Health. At Hackensack Meridian, we believe in transforming healthcare and being the leader in positive change. That includes the goal to keep getting better in the medical and wellness services we provide within the communities we serve. That's why we sponsored this year's Case Study Challenge. The students who presented in this competition are the future of healthcare administration. They will be the leaders who provide key decisions within hospitals and healthcare systems. They will be presented with challenges in healthcare, some currently known and others unforeseen, and they will need to know how to approach these challenges, lead key teams, and offer scientific-based solutions that deliver optimal results. This case study challenge provides an excellent training opportunity to do just that, to collaborate in teams and be able to learn about current healthcare crises around the country and provide solutions based on data and analysis. The students who participated in the case study challenge should be proud of themselves, and I know that they made their school proud as well. Speaking for Hackensack Meridian Health, I am honored to join and witness this case study challenge. I just want to thank the School of Health and Medical Sciences at Seton Hall University, as well as the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey for organizing this event. Even though this was virtual this year, everything went off without a hitch. Really excellent job. I also want to thank the Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Management Education for co-sponsoring this event. CAHME is a fantastic organization and an excellent resource for healthcare management students. On behalf of Hackensack Meridian Health, thank you again, and take care.
Hi, I'm Mike Sluzars, the president of the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey. HPMSNJ is a proud co-sponsor of the Graduate Healthcare Management Case Study Challenge with Seton Hall University. The Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey is a professional association comprised of healthcare planning, marketing, and corporate communication professionals throughout New Jersey, with a legacy going back to 1982. Our mission is to advance our profession through innovative forums, seminars, professional development programs, educational opportunities, and networking events. When we began to develop the Case Challenge with Seton Hall, we felt as a board that the program fit perfectly with our mission by expanding our footprint and supporting the educational aspirations of our young healthcare leaders as they enter the healthcare management field. Having spent close to 30 years of my career in the healthcare field, and as one of the competition's judges, I can say with confidence how inspiring this program was for me in listening to the students as they presented their insights, innovative solutions, and creative thinking. In thinking outside the box and working as a team in tackling the unique challenges that our industry faces today. So once again, on behalf of the board and members of HPMSNJ, we're proud and honored to be a partner in the Case Study Challenge with Seton Hall University and our other sponsors, and look forward to the many years ahead as we continue to support the educational goals of these wonderful students. Finally, I can say with confidence, after having been involved and participated in the Case Study Challenge, our industry is in great hands with this next generation of healthcare leaders. Thank you.
And that was a wonderful perspective from our sponsor and our premier, our partner and our premier sponsor. After that, after we had obtained those two primary support personnel, my next role was to recruit judges. This year, it was a little bit different in that it required additional information and description as judges were concerned about the virtual format. But I think when you hear from them, you'll understand that they thoroughly enjoyed this type of a presentation. So we were able to then put together the complete agenda for the day, which included external and internal speakers that we wanted other participants to hear, as well as timelines for regular breaks, lunch, and set aside time for judges' deliberations. One of the most critical roles in conducting a case study challenge is the selection of the topic for the case study. In this particular year, we invited our executive advisory board to participate in a focus group to obtain their perceptions on what would be a great idea for case study challenges. In this next video, you're going to see a chief hospital officer. You're going to see a public health officer of one of the largest counties in New Jersey. We have a vice president of community relations, and finally, a MD that is aligned with a major insurance company. One of the purposes that I have for today, and I'm so glad to see all of you as the Executive Advisory Board, is that I need you to share with us what are the most pressing real-world problems that would be appropriate for a case study challenge for graduate students. And as you know, we're focusing on strategic planning and marketing because that's our partner organization, the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey.
And I think obviously, what's sort of top of mind with everyone in every organization is the current COVID crisis that we're dealing with, not only in this state, but within this country. And some of the lessons learned from dealing with this particular pandemic when it came to COVID, and the fact that they were unwilling to seek out care, and this sort of just compounded the issue. How do we effectively communicate to those communities through, marketing, social media, and so forth, that it is safe not only to come into the hospital, but they should continue to seek out needed healthcare.
Them all the physical, mental, and social well-being aspects of their health. They need to be able to address those chronic illnesses and get all the prevention pieces that are in place, and to be able to identify any other issues that they may have, and not prolong that, and not be afraid to go to the doctor, or not be afraid to go for that screening or that mammogram or that test, because my fear and concern is that you're looking down the road 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and you're going to see an increase in a lot of these preventable diseases that are really unnecessary. And so we have to kind of broaden the scope a little bit, keep COVID on our radar, but at the same time have cast a bigger net to be able to keep everything in perspective.
Point, we've certainly learned a lot of and seen a lot of challenges during our first wave, whether it be the concern with access to care, appropriate procuring PPE, working on staffing shortages to really overcome this fear, but also provide emotional support, for our team really going through some challenging times. And I think as part of the case study, if the students can really hear some of the lessons and challenges that we experienced during wave one, basically using some literature search and some talk this case study, hopefully some strategies could be used as we prepare for an inevitable wave 2. So this would be really good information that we could actually take back from the case study and actually use operationally in real life situations.
Is really look for what are the sources of data that will help us to better frame this case study. So if you have any thoughts on where we can source this data, that would be excellent.
Well, New Jersey Hospital Association, through their chart program, that's sort of headed up by Sean Hopkins, is a tremendous source of data. They do the data mining for the industry throughout the state. That data is available.
Okay, so you heard from some of our executive advisory board members as they helped us to really identify the topic. And this was something which was highlighted by the judges, by the faculty coaches, as well as the students, as being something which really led to the success of this virtual case study event. Speaking of virtual, when we start to look at what really is required to get this off the ground, we had to choose between technology. We have options available here in terms of going with a variety of platforms. the two major ones being Microsoft Teams or Zoom. We did consider very carefully what are the pros and cons of each of these platforms. But this was something which the choice was inevitably made for us because Microsoft Teams is the platform of choice for us. It's supported by our Seton Hall University, by the Teaching, Learning and Technology Center, as well as the instructional designers on campus. That being said, this allowed us to really tap into these technology champions who were integral in really planning out what we need to really be mindful of as we get into this process, trying to really outline how it's going to play out on the day, how students are going to enter, how they're going to be able to present, what is it that we are going to really require to make this a success and still be really open to its use by a variety of students and teams from different schools. So this is something which was exciting. At the same time, there were clearly some unknowns that we were getting into. But with our technology champions, especially led by Riyadh Twal, who several of you who were in the case study challenge got to meet, we were able to really navigate this very well and without any hitch. The issue with going virtual really brought up two additional possibilities. One was it allowed us to expand the reach of the teams who could participate in this. They did not really have to be limited to schools that could drive down and be a part of this competition, this day-long event. Now they could sit at their home, at wherever they were, and be a part of this. Additionally, it also expanded the opportunity for others, other faculty who might want to participate in this. If they were not physically available on campus, they could easily just use the link which was shared with the schools to be able to participate. So this was an additional bonus which was there. And this, I think, worked out really well for several of the students and teams who responded to it. The issue that we faced was in order to really be able to share this link, and as the event planning started to gain high gear, we found that there were several links that needed to be established. They needed to be tested to make sure that they're working and they're the right ones that are sent to the correct people. That's something which we worked out by first trying to really populate this in just one document, and then by setting it up as calendar invites, which could then be shared with all the teams that were participating, all the judges who were there, all the speakers who were going to be coming. So the virtual issues, there were some things which were slightly different from what you would really expect. Instead of just providing a physical address, we were now providing links for people to show up. In order to get this moving off the ground, we then next moved on to really thinking of how do we communicate this, the changes on account of the virtual case study challenge. And the perfect avenue for this was an informational webinar that we scheduled approximately 45 days before the event. Now, this is something which we sent out the invitation to the links that was shared with us by CAHME of the schools in the region that are CAHME-Accredited and pipeline. And what we did was we included with this invitation our list of frequently asked questions that we started last year, and we kept adding to it when we came across things that were more pertinent this year, for instance, related to technology. What are some of the resources that are available for students and teams to be able to really tap into? So all of that was added, and this was really a live document that we kept adding even beyond this informational webinar. One of the other things that we found that it did, actually two of them, was first, it allowed us through this informational webinar to really reach out to schools that may have been on the fence. They haven't participated in a case competition or a case study challenge earlier. So this was something which piqued the interest of several of the faculty who came on, and they were able to really hear from not just us as the organizers, but also I would say several veterans who have gone through a number of these case study challenges. And I think that was something which was really useful. The second issue was the timing of this informational webinar served as a good reminder because the registration of student teams was something which was going to be scheduled next. So this is something which we found was really useful to include as part of the informational webinar, not just the topic, the case study challenge, the use of technology, but also to reach out to other schools that may have been thinking of it, but they weren't still completely sure. So having attended to the informational webinar, as Dr. Hewitt mentioned, that the identification of judges was something which was very, very important. Since we found that our number of participating teams was expanding, it was important to now try to make sure that we have a complete roster of these judges. No surprises, we expanded this from our earlier 6 judges to a complete bench of 9 judges. All of these were independent judges drawn from the likes of HPMSNJ, the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey, some that Anthony was able to really tap into through his contacts at CAHME. We were able to get that. And as you will hear later, Dr. Hewitt was able to reach out to many of the key players in New Jersey and be able to really include them. We wanted to make sure that these judges were very independent. They weren't really biased by the teams and the schools that are being represented here. This is something which could happen very easily. And we put specific processes in place, which I'll speak about in just a minute, that helped us to make sure that we were able to keep this independence of the judges. In order to make sure that these judges were really trained and aware of what is really required, we also undertook a training of judges, again for 2 reasons. One, to give them a good overview of the topic that was there, as well as to introduce them to the technology. And one of the things that at least 2 judges mentioned on that day was that they have been using Microsoft Teams, which was our choice of technology that we were going with. But nobody had really shared with them some of these features, which our instructional designer, Riyad Tual, was able to really share with them. So they became more comfortable with the technology and what could really be done, especially in terms of how we are going to be moving from different sessions into our breakout rooms and all of this. So this was something which was important. In providing an overview of the topic, we also shared with the judges a brief outline of what are some of the salient points in the case study challenge, what are some of the responses that are going to be like, sort of the Cliff Notes version for the judges. The second part that we really focused on was the use of rubrics for grading. And I'll share with you a sample of the rubrics that we used. This was something which was, again, important for making sure that the judges were able to really go through all the questions that were being asked of the teams and how they really responded to it. The last thing which we found was important to do, given that we had a number of teams, was to make sure that the judges were not tied up for that entire Saturday that this case study challenge was going to be. So we took a conscious decision to split the roster of judges between judges that were going to be more used in the morning and the others who would be strictly performing their duties in the afternoon. So they had a choice that they could continue to stay on, of course, but we did not really want to burden them with grading so many teams and throughout the day. So that was the reason why we decided to split the judges between the morning and afternoon. Now, this is a sample of the rubrics that were used. These were based on an Excel file, which firstly had to pre-populate the scores and aggregate it for the judges. There were 2 rubrics, one for the abstract and one for the presentation. These are rubrics which we can share with anybody who's interested. It's just an Excel file. We'll be more than happy to share it with you. You'll also notice that it has space for feedback. And that's what we encouraged the judges to do, was to be able to really also provide very pertinent feedback to the different aspects of the case study challenge and the responses therein. Because the idea was that once this is completed, we would be able to share this back with the teams. So in addition to the Q&A, the question and answer sessions that the judges had with the teams, we wanted to make sure that we share this back with the teams. And my reasoning for that was very simple, that as an instructor, when I use rubrics for grading assignments, I always make it a good point. It's a best practice here at Seton Hall to share the rubric along with the feedback with the students. So this is something which is a big positive, and we wanted to continue that trend. Moving on to some of the other processes, we wanted to make sure that the registration of the teams was something which went ahead very smoothly. So this was very simple, that they just needed to send me an email, and that would really help us to advance this onto the registration of teams. We included information about the members as well as the alternates. And this is where we make sure that we identify teams with code. So going forward with the submission of the abstract and the presentation, the codes that were assigned to teams were the only things that they were using. And interestingly, this is something which led to a very unique situation, I would say, at the time of judging, when one of the judges felt that a team had identified its school because they used Rutgers. And I had to really step in at that point and say that that's actually not the team from Rutgers. So they are quite good. They are not identifying their team. So this is because only Annie and me, both of us were the only ones who knew the codes and the teams. Nobody else knew, not even the judges. So that worked out well. The role of the faculty coaches was something which came up extensively in the informational webinar. And I was glad that many of the veterans, other schools, were able to really chime in and clarify that the faculty coaches were really going to be the content, not the content experts, but just the facilitators. So that was something which was good. The other point which I would mention here in terms of the key processes was getting this signed media release form, which once these teams had submitted to me, allowed me to share the recording of the presentations, and which is something which I think was really well received. The student preparation, this is something which I was able to glean based on the feedback, and you will hear very, very briefly from the students about how they really went about it. The key points here was that the students were really in charge. They really divided up the roles and responsibilities, set up their own timelines, such that they were able to really use a variety of communication platform, including the messaging, the common messaging, group messaging, to get all of this together. They spent extensive time becoming more comfortable with technology, including, they mentioned, propping up their laptops at the appropriate height with books and everything else that they could really find. And one of the last points that was mentioned here was how they were able to really use the alumni for giving them feedback on their presentation, as well as prep them for the Q&A session. So this is something which the teams were able to really do. In terms of the actual case study challenge, when we were getting close to it, we made sure that we reminded our internal and external speakers who were going to be involved in the event at least a week in advance that the case study is coming up. This is the amount of time that is available. Being a virtual event, the timing was very, very critical. So this reminder was very useful. We also made sure that we allowed ample time for teams, judges, anybody else who wanted to join the event early, so that they could become more familiar and test out the technology that was there. And again, we emphasized the need for the blinded presentations. And here there was one particular point when one of the teams asked me a question during the technology presentation, testing technology phase. And for a minute, my heart sank that they might share that they are from a particular school. But I was glad that we had reinforced the idea that you use only the codes assigned to you, and they mentioned they are team B2. So that was quite a relief that nothing really went out. The issue that we had to really deal with, since we had so many teams that registered, was to make sure that we had it divided up between a concurrent and plenary presentation. Since we had 12 teams that were participating, we wanted to make sure that everybody had the time to really present, be graded by the judges, and have a Q&A session. So we decided to split them up into two groups who presented their presentations concurrently, 6 teams each. And then in the afternoon, they really went into the plenary presentation where the 2 highest scoring teams in each of the groups advanced. So this is something which again worked out really well. And I was really happy that this was an event that worked out really well. The last point that I wanted to mention here before I move on to other parts of this presentation was the use of the breakout rooms for the Q&A. This is again something which came up in the informational webinar. where there was a feeling that being a virtual event, if we kept the Q&A portion also open to everybody, this gave an unfair advantage to teams that were presenting later. There were also the ethics of this that we were really getting into. So we decided to go in with a private breakout room for the Q&A, using a separate link, which was just shared with the teams and the judges who were assigned to it. So this is again something which was a big positive for doing the planning this way. I'll move on to Dr. Hewitt, who will take us through the judges conference.
Thank you, Nalan, and that was a complete description of the multiple steps that were accomplished. In the judges conference, of course, there were two of them. The first one after the morning, after all of the teams had been heard, and their deliberation was to select the top 4 teams then to move on to the afternoon session and to compete in the winner's circle. So that deliberation was done over lunchtime. The judges did have already in advance, they had their rubrics, they had a copy of the each team's abstract, as well as their PowerPoints. Last year, we hosted a networking lunch for the students while those judges were deliberating. This year, we just gave them a short breakout time because we didn't conduct any networking, actual face-to-face networking at that time. Once the final 4 were decided on, they were notified, teams were notified by Dr. Jury, and randomly they knew they were going to present in the afternoon. And then we then had another judging, deliberation time, which I will talk about in a minute. But I think what we want to do now is listen to our judges' presentation.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth McNutt, and I am an Assistant Vice President at RWJ Barnabas Health in New Jersey in the Strategic Planning Department. This is my second year helping to judge the Case Study Challenge sponsored by Seton Hall University and HPMSNJ, and I'm honored to be asked to participate for a second year and also to be able to participate in this challenge in this setting in 2020 as a virtually hosted case study challenge. This is my opportunity to give back a little bit to the profession. I do remember being a student when I was in graduate school many years ago and participating in a similar case study challenge. And I do remember what the experience brought me and what I got out of it. So I'm really excited to be able to serve as a judge many years later and work with these students and to be able to provide them with the feedback and also work with them in what is very similar to a real life setting while they are still students and give them this exposure and feedback to help them prepare for their jobs after graduation. I do want to say something about the students who have chosen to participate in a case study challenge, especially in a year like this year where it is virtually done and they don't get the luxury of working with their teammates, in the same room for many weeks on end, and it is a little bit more difficult logistically to do it this year. I feel that students who raise their hands and are willing to do something that is considered extracurricular and not mandatory towards graduation really highlights those students that are willing to go above and beyond what is required of them and really step outside their comfort zone. And regardless of where they place in the challenge, they really have an opportunity to grow. As a department lead in my organization, this is what I would look for when, interviewing candidates and looking for students who have exposed themselves to opportunities such as this. I will say that presentations were exceptional, and being a judge reviewing them was really a pleasure. Some of the work that the students presented was really quality, high-level quality, where I would expect them to come from consultants who have been in the field for many years, and it really speaks to the time and effort that they put in there. Even the students whose presentations didn't go fully as they planned really gave us the opportunity to talk about how to adjust, because those things do happen when they are at their place of employment. And it gives us an opportunity to, discuss what happens when a meeting is cut short or when something doesn't work. And very similarly, regardless of how they placed, it gave us all an opportunity to give them the feedback, and everyone got to learn and grow from the challenge. This year, switching to virtual presentations also allowed all participants to learn new skills. That's both the students as well as the judges. For many of us, this was new technology that we were using. Switching between speakers in a presentation took a lot of coordination and effort that we wouldn't have had if we were in person. So all of it was looked at as an opportunity by all. I, again, am so thankful for being asked to be a judge and really appreciate the opportunity and having worked with the students, many of whom I'm sure I will see again as they enter the workforce in New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Trisha LaGrace. I'm a Master's of Healthcare Administration student at Drexel University. Last year, I received an email from my advisor about an opportunity to participate in a case study challenge put on by Seton University and in conjunction with the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey. I participated last year and received an honorable mention award from the Health Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey's judges. Shortly after, in January 2020, I joined the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey as a student member. I got involved with the HPM-SNJ, and this year I was invited back to judge the competition. As a result of COVID, we had to have a virtual case study challenge this year, but it was such an honor and privilege to come back and judge this amazing group of students from a variety of Northeastern universities that are accredited through the Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Management Education, CAHME. CAHME is a premier sponsor alongside Hackensack Meridian Health and Verilon Consulting, who put on this amazing event each year. Somebody once said to me, be a yes person. And I think the best advice I could give is to step up and get involved with some of these wonderful organizations in the healthcare field, whether you're in a administrative background, whether you have a clinical background, or whether you have an education background. This is a great event to showcase your skills and talents and provide real-time solutions to issues facing the healthcare field.
Hello, my name is Rowie Rennert, and I'm a senior associate from Verilon. And this has been my second year serving as a judge at the Seton Hall case competition. And both years have been really extraordinary. The reason that I got into judging is that I thought I could bring my experience, my academic learnings, as well as my expertise from my profession, and impart some of that wisdom on the students who were presenting their cases. And both years, I thought the students did a really good job. Similar to consulting, the case was sort of amorphous at times. It was a little bit ambiguous. And so framing the problem is critical. And I thought all teams did that very well. Actually, the first year that I judged the case competition, it sort of inspired me to develop a mentorship program for HPM-SNJ, the Healthcare Planning and Marketing Society of New Jersey. The reason being is that I felt my role as a judge was in some ways as a mentor, and to mentor the next generation of healthcare leaders, if only for one afternoon in November a year. And once that itch was scratched, I thought that it would be helpful for our younger members of HPM-SNJ to have an outlet and to be linked with a professional who can provide them with some resources, some expertise, some lessons learned, and really help them triangulate on maybe what their interests are, what their interests aren't, in an effort to sort of build their professional network and to build their set of skills and their toolbox. I'm particularly grateful that my employer Verilon has been a sponsor of the case competition, as well as HPM-SNJ, and really therefore the mentorship program. At Verilon, we value growth. It is one of our values, and we think that we're only as good as our employees are, and as their professional and personal growth is. And I very much feel the same way about the HPMS&J mentorship program. I'm only as good as the students who are there. And so from a talent development perspective, from branding, it's wonderful that Verilon and HPMS&J and Seton Hall were all able to sort of partner on this case competition. And I'm grateful to be included, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
So during the time that the judges were deliberating, the students were involved. All of the participants were involved in an interactive session with CEO and President Anthony Stankowski. And we have a short video clip of that interactive session.
Great, thanks, Annie. And I want to thank you very much for inviting me to the session. When you look at what all of you did and the opportunity that you got to work with your peers on a common issue that's incredibly relevant to the environment that we're in today with COVID. And then you all got a chance to present to leading executives, the president of New Jersey Hospital Association, now knows your face, a senior vice president with the Delaware Valley ACO. You presented to executives like that, like the chief operating officer at Hackensack, Vice President Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas. Mike Slusar is the president of our society, who's involved with so many different organizations. That opportunity and what it gave to you is just incredibly valuable. So, congratulations on making that right move and for kind of doing that and for being there.
So we were exceptionally pleased that so many of the students and participants stayed throughout the day, even if they were not in the Final Four. Dr. Joe Reed?
Yeah, so just going ahead to wrap up the parts about the process. The prize distribution was something which happened with the premier sponsor, Hackensack Meridian Health, and Matt from HMH was there to help us do it. This was the time where we really tied the teams together with their codes, and Rutgers came out first and they got their check, and we are in the process of really getting all that part done. Just to wrap up on the case study challenge, what we did was, just with the prize distribution, things didn't end. We wanted to make sure that we continued with the parts that we had set up, including sharing the recording of the presentations. So all the teams that completed the media release forms have already got this. We've also gone ahead and shared with the teams the rubrics that were submitted by the judges. So that's something which I've been able to go ahead and share. And finally, just this process of getting the paperwork done for the prizes, the cash prizes that are there. That's something which is going on right now. So in conclusion, there are a few faculty feedback and student feedback that we wanted to share with you before we go on to the Q&A portion. So I'll just share some brief snippets from there.
Emphasizes from our students, and I'll bet from other schools as well, we're having a fall case study versus in the springtime, when many of these students have the opportunity to have the strategic planning and have the marketing and quality and some of these other courses. And I thought about that, and I think the other schools fit into that mold too. However, not everyone can have their case study challenge in the spring as well. And I think that's something that, just given who our sponsor, who are
exactly.
That I think they kind of expect that. So our solution may be to emphasize the planning, which would help with the strategic planning and the operations.
To that point, you could see the individuals in the case study challenge that were full-time working professionals. They knew how to handle, how to present using Teams or other types of applications versus some of the younger students that maybe are just out of undergrad and struggling with how do I present, how do I move around, how do I get my point without being able to use body language.
Interesting.
Okay, I just wanted to share a brief bit because we are also mindful of the time and want to leave time for the Q&A. So I will share some brief student feedback before we move on to the Q&A portion.
Challenge was an experience I will take for a lifetime. Having the ability to work on a case study that had real-world implications, like the one that we were exposed to, helped us gain insights and knowledge of how healthcare managers will handle something of this magnitude, such as a pandemic.
Personally participating in this challenge, representing Seton Hall as a team member, I'm extremely proud, and it was really a prestigious opportunity, I would say, representing my university in a program with so many participants. Scenario that's happening right now that has no time-tested solution. So we had to come up with the solution, and it required so much research. And none of even the giants like Cleveland or Mayo, everybody is in a confused state. Nobody has a definitive answer. So it was quite interesting to see all the ideas that our team members had and to finally put up the presentation that we did. It was hours of work and research.
I think. Okay, so just shout out to all those individuals who helped us to really share their feedback for participating in the video recording, including our sponsors, Anthony from CAHME, our Executive Advisory Board, the judges who gave off their time. And I want to also just give a shout out to the MHA students who were involved in providing this feedback, as well as the MHA faculty. Thank you for really being with us for this event. And now I would like to really ask who has the first question that both Annie and I can respond to.
Nalan, I have a question that someone gave me. So they said, what was one of the biggest challenges you feel like that you faced having to go virtually versus an in-person case study?
Okay. I think I'll take a first stab at it, and Dr. Hewitt can then jump in after that. I think the greatest challenge for us was really trying to figure out the technology piece, how that was going to really play out, because this had never been done before. Doing it face-to-face, there are time-trusted, tested solutions that are there in the ways in which you can really set this all up. But keeping it virtual and being able to really make sure that we are able to conduct all of this, we didn't really have a case study or an example to really go by. So we were like flying in the dark with just by the seat of our pants and trying to really figure out what is happening. So all of that was both a challenge, and I think it was something which, given our instructional design team, including Riyadh, we were able to really navigate and come across, and I'm glad that there was like really no glitch along the way. So I would say that was the greatest challenge for us being virtual. No surprises, the technology piece. Annie, if you want to add to that.
Sure, I'll just quickly say, this was only our second year for hosting a case study challenge. So it wasn't like we had years of protocols and processes to turn around. We'd only done it once. So, and I'm not even sure all those processes were codified from last year. So it was relatively easy, I want to say, to switch formats. I think the other plus is that our particular school has two learning formats for the degree. One is totally online. So all of our professors and all of us were familiar with teaching this way, and going virtually in that sense from the university was a little bit easier.
There's somebody else asked, what or who did you find to be the best way or best person to reach out to when inviting other schools?
I would say that one of the nice things about our two professional organizations, CAHME and AUPA, is that we're a very friendly and collegial group, and everybody knows everyone else. And when the word gets out that you're having a regional competition, it's people almost contact you. If you just share, we're thinking about doing this. And I would also just emphasize regional competitions are great. as many times, if we go back to the face-to-face, the resources for smaller schools are just not available to participate.
Okay. We had another question. Could you describe the process of writing the case?
Okay, I think that's a great question. And I think that was something which was integral to the success of this particular case study. We got inputs from our executive advisory board, as you heard in the video clip, and that got us started in thinking about how we could really narrow down this particular topic. We looked at how some of the other case study challenges that are going on, they were having a particular focus. For instance, the whole diversity issue, which was also part of this COVID challenge, we wanted to steer clear of because there are other case study challenges that really address that issue. So we kept it very narrowly focused on things which we thought were really pertinent based on the inputs from our executive advisory board. We then started to look at the sources of data that were again identified, but not really finding too much, as you would see, like when we shared the materials for the case study challenge. We had to work with several unknowns here, data that was not completely available. And again, that's something which is a reflection of the reality. Like sometimes you don't have perfect data, but you still need to come up with solutions. And that's what we left the teams with. So I think all in all, this is something which worked out really well.
I would just add quickly that we also wanted to emphasize, given our partnership with the Healthcare Planning, Marketing, and Society of New Jersey, that we did want to emphasize, again, the strategic planning and the marketing aspects of our case study challenge. So when writing it, we made sure to highlight and emphasize those components.
Okay, a couple more questions. I'll try to get there quickly. Can you share any tips for securing sponsorship for the prize money?
I'm sorry, do you want to repeat that one again?
Oh, sorry, Annie. Can you share tips for securing sponsorship for the prize money?
I think that goes back to, that's relatively easy. That goes back to your relationships with your individual stakeholders, the various companies that are in your region, those that hire your students, and those kinds of relationships do have to be built over time. I find that in the ask this year, it was a little bit different because they didn't comprehend what a virtual case study was. Once they understood it was the same process, it just happened to be virtual, they were on board. So I would say building on past relationships with not only alumni and the industry stakeholders is what you need to do.
And I would also add to that, based on the relationship this year, because we were able to get the sponsorship fairly quickly, we were also able to extend free registration to the team. So I think that was a big plus, and it's really part of the sponsorship. So that's something which you need to really think of. Being a virtual event, we could do it as a free registration for teams also.
Okay, and then how did you get the local professional society involved?
Well, I think we were very fortunate with a partnership relationship, and also I want to say the seminal role of CAHME. There was no regional competition in our area, and there are many, many schools located in the northeast corner where we are, the Mid-Atlantic region.
Okay, and someone said, we've been hosting a face-to-face competition for 8 years with 5 to 7 teams participating. What is the maximum number of teams for a virtual competition you feel is manageable?
Okay, I think I'll take a first stab at it. We looked at the logistics of it, and depending on how much time you allow teams to really present, if you're going to be allowing them time for presentation and Q&A, in a day, if you're going to be doing this competition, I think having between 12 and maybe 16 to 18 teams is probably manageable. Once it goes beyond that, it's more difficult to really have it as a concurrent and a plenary session. Of course, you could have many more groups and try to really do it. But I think once you've gone beyond 16 to 18 teams, that really becomes almost unmanageable. And given a regional competition, I don't think you would really have more than 16 to 18 teams that would really participate.
Okay, yeah, I would just add quickly that we wanted to make sure we were inclusive. and that we didn't leave anybody out.
Okay, and then going off of that with the teams, I have one last question we'll get in here. Did you allow multiple teams from one school to participate?
Yes, that's something which we were very conscious of, and based on our informational webinar as well as the FAQs, we were very clear that more than one team could really register from a school. And this is something which there was no hesitation, because this was the format even from our first year, that we were clear that more than one team from a school could participate. So we just continued with that format.
All right, thank you, Nolan. So we're going to try to wrap it up here. I know thanks everyone is hanging in here with us for an hour today. We appreciate it. And thank you, Dr. Jory and Dr. Hewitt, for such an informative session today on virtual case competitions, which is, you know, the new and upcoming world we're living in here. So you guys did a great job planning and organizing everything, and it was very well thought out. And thank you for sharing all the steps and planning process with everyone here today. So just as a reminder, the recording and the slides will be available on our CAHME website within a couple of days. I know there's a lot of good information and examples on there. And Dr. Hewitt and Jory's information is on their slides if you have any other additional questions for them about their case study process. So thank you all for attending today as part of our CAHME Mentorship Circle series. If you want to see any other slides or presentations or video recordings in our CMC series, you can visit cahme.org/CMC or contact me with any additional questions.
Thank you for watching today's webinar in our CMC series. For more information or to view past webinars, slides, or to register for upcoming webinars, please go to www.cahme.org/CMC. Thank you.